darkest night of that strange autumn, I first realized that something was terribly wrong with my new neighbor, because every time I looked at his old wooden house at the end of the narrow street, I felt a cold heaviness crawl across my skin like an unseen hand, and the silence around it felt heavier than the silence of a grave. And even though the street was always calm, the shadow around his house seemed alive, as if it breathed slowly, watching everything that passed by. And on my first evening in the neighborhood, I saw him standing behind his dusty window, staring at me with eyes that looked too wide, too empty, too hungry for a normal man. And when I blinked, he was gone, leaving the window dark like a hollow mouth. And that night, as I tried to sleep, I heard faint footsteps pacing outside my door, though no one lived on my side of the house. And when I opened the door, there was nothing but a chilling smell that reminded me of wet earth and old wood. And I could not explain why I felt watched, even in the deepest part of the night. And as days passed, the quiet tension grew thicker, until one evening, when I was returning home, I heard soft whispering near his fence, though the air was completely still. And when I stepped closer, the whispering stopped at once, like something had sensed me, and pulled back into the shadows, holding its breath, waiting for me to leave. And later, that night, I saw a trembling light moving inside his house, as if someone was walking slowly from room to room, searching for something or someone. And just when I leaned forward to understand, the light snapped off, and the house fell into a darkness so complete it made the rest of the street look unreal. And the next morning, I found deep scratches on my door, not made by any animal I had ever seen, and the scratches formed a shape like an eye staring back at me. And that was the moment I realized that my neighbor was not just strange, but dangerous in a way that I had no words for, and I knew I needed answers. So I gathered my courage and approached his house just before sunset. And when I knocked, the door opened by itself, revealing a long hallway filled with the same wet earth smell I had sensed before. And the deeper I walked, the colder the air became, until it felt like I was walking into a frozen cave. And then I heard it, the slow, dragging sound of something moving toward me from the darkness ahead. And when I stepped back, a figure emerged, carrying the same wide, empty stare I had seen behind the window. But now the eyes looked darker and deeper, like they were not eyes at all, but doorways to something else. And he whispered in a slow, uneven voice that I had been chosen to replace him because he had served long enough. And the shadows around him began to rise like living smoke, curling around my feet, until I stumbled backwards, struggling to escape. And just before the shadows reached my chest, I fell out through the open doorway onto the cold ground outside. And when I looked back, the house was silent again. The door closed, the windows dark, the shadows gone, and the smell fading into the night as if nothing had happened. And the next day, when I asked the landlord about my neighbor, he looked at me with fear in his eyes and told me that no one had lived in that house for nearly 15 years, since the last tenant vanished without a trace. And since that moment, I have not walked near that house again, because some nights when the wind is soft and the moon is pale, I still hear faint footsteps outside my door. And I know he is waiting for the next moment